examine the logic behind the message. Does this make sense? Is it helpful? Is it useful? And when you go through your triage, you have to consider if you're basing evaluation on facts or inferences. So if you make conclusions based on partial information, your triage might be inaccurate. So you have to make sure that you're basing your evaluations on facts. And so when you're evaluating and sorting, part of that is this quality information? Is this accurate information? And don't jump the gun. Resist the urge to jump to conclusions. We all tend to do it. We all tend to have our perceptions and our beliefs and our opinions, and so we get those formed in our head, and then it can be very difficult to, back down from that. So, fact, directly observed as true and or proven to be true. Definition of a fact. So we have to either directly observe, so we personally witness something is true, or it's proven to be true. We don't necessarily have to see it, but we know that it has been proven. An inference is a conclusion based on speculation. So we have an opinion of something based on something we think or we believe or we've heard or we hope. So huge difference between fact and inference, and if we jump to conclusions, often that's on an inference rather than a fact. And our responding skills, important to talk about. Well-timed responses are more effective. So if you're thinking about the process of communicating, you have your 4 listening skills, and then you have your responding. So if you wait too long, so if someone says something and you are processing it and you wait too long, that's not nearly as effective as if you say it at the right moment. But you also need to be sensitive about the other person's willingness or need for the feedback. So again, that whole don't try to solve the problem concept, sometimes people just want to share and they don't necessarily need you to say much. So be sensitive about whether they're actually waiting for a response or whether they just need you to listen and be there and not really respond verbally so much. Be selective about what to respond to. So make sure that your responses are well timed, but then also be selective about what you respond to. Filter out the important stuff. So if you're actually going to say something in response, make sure it's about something important. Someone tells you a 5-minute story and you remember one detail about, something that's insignificant, and that's what you choose to comment on. It's going to make the person feel that you didn't listen, even if you truly did. So filter out the important stuff and make sure that's what you comment on. Avoid unnecessary details. So don't focus on little things. Don't focus on things that don't matter. You really can just kind of pay attention to the specifics that are important and significant. And be descriptive rather than evaluative. And let's briefly talk about the difference there. Descriptive is you are explaining or describing something. So this is what I see, experience, believe, whatever. Evaluative is giving your opinion or judgment of something. So an example might be you're in the car with someone and you say, "You're an awful driver." That's evaluative because you are evaluating how they're driving, you're giving them your opinion, you're giving them your judgment. A descriptive response would be, "Frank, I get very nervous when you zigzag so fast through the freeway traffic." That's describing what you're feeling and describing what Frank is doing. Notice there's no judgment there. You're much less likely to get a reactive response, or you're much less likely to have the defensive posture pop up if you use descriptive responding rather than evaluative. And notice that there's an I statement there, and we'll talk about this a lot. I statements are your new best friend. Rather than starting sentences with you, start them with I. So not you are an awful driver, but I'm very nervous when you zigzag so fast through the freeway traffic. It puts the focus on yourself and what you are feeling rather than an accusation of the other person, and that will often lead to much less conflict, much less arguing, much less defensive responses, things like that. So I statements, we'll talk about those more. So listening and responding situations. If you can imagine being in the role described, that can be very helpful. Again, that's the empathy. You can talk with a friend about the emotional concerns surrounding the event. And listeners respond with empathy and avoid sympathy or evaluation. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but one of the concepts that I think is important for you all to know is the difference between empathy and sympathy. So if you would like to reflect on the difference and why that's significant to know, and why listeners should respond with empathy but not sympathy, that is an interesting concept and an important one. So that can be something that you choose to reflect on. And your purpose is to understand the person's position and refrain from judgments. So, this is what I think about that. Reassurance, oh, it's going to be okay, really. You really can't make that kind of statement truthfully, because it may not, Sometimes things are just bad, and sometimes things are difficult, and sometimes things don't get better. And so, reassurance can sometimes not be what a person needs to hear. And sometimes they don't need to hear advice either. So when you're in listening and responding situations, those are some key concepts that you can think about. And just as one last slide, if you have any other thoughts, I would love to hear them. You can either email me or reflect about them. This is a really good chapter though, and it had a lot more than what we covered. If you would like to and you're really ambitious, I would encourage you to read it a couple of more times. I know that's probably not likely. However, do kind of keep this chapter in mind, bookmark it or put a little sticky note on it or something, and as we go through the rest of the chapters and we go through the book, please come back to this chapter. This is kind of the foundational concept of communication. If you can get listening down, your communication on so many levels is going to be better. So this really is a really rich, thick chapter full of stuff. I was not able to go through everything, but it's certainly important to be aware of these things and learn these things and build those skills. So please make sure that you do your reflection. Also make sure that you do your paraphrasing activity for the week. And if you have any questions, please post them in the question section, and otherwise I should probably be emailing you in a few days to touch base, see how things are going, and I hope that you have a great week. See you next time.